They say that nobody remembers the first speech, but since this isn't necessarily a speech, it is perfectly okay if you forget all my mistakes throughout this. My name is Lilian. I am 15 years old, and I'm currently a sophomore at Lynbrook High School. Being on this Christian walk for the past 15 years of my life, I can safely say that there have been major ups as well as significant lows. Growing up, I am so thankful that God put me in a family and location where I was able to grow up attending church. As a child, I loved being around my church friends, and my parents were extremely involved. Church was a sanctuary for me where the adults were kind and the children were friendly. As I began to make my own decisions, however, I began to question things. I had this rebellious period in Awana where I began to question its purpose. I felt that it simply motivated kids to memorize verses through earning money or shares to buy materialistic things. And I thought church was dumb, but I didn't understand that it was these verses that would later come into play in my spiritual life. Attending youth retreats in middle school taught me to take church as well as God seriously, and the quality of my life began to change when I realized how much of a role God played in my life. I began to pursue leadership in an effort to serve others, and throughout the past few years, God has opened so many doors and opportunities for me through leadership. Once I began to take my faith seriously, however, I somehow came up with the notion of becoming the perfect Christian. Whether it was keeping up with devotions or setting an example of Jesus to others, I strived for perfection. However, the more I tried to be that perfect Christian, the further down I fell. I was disappointed in myself, and I knew that God did not want a lukewarm Christian. And I didn't want to be one, I just couldn't help it that I wasn't perfect. Going into high school, it really challenged my faith. I met really great friends, some of whom weren't Christian, and everybody at my high school had different motivations for working hard. A conversation with my non-Christian friend really helped me to realize my identity in my faith. We were talking about our life philosophies, and I shared about what I thought of life from a Christian standpoint. I knew I was going to be judged, but I set all my thoughts aside and shared the gospel. He was playing the devil's advocate, and I struggled with answering a lot of his questions. And I thought that if I couldn't even answer these questions, I'm not even fit to be a Christian because I can't even share the gospel with somebody who wants to know about it. But reflecting on that conversation today, the most important part was that my identity was in Christ. Even if I wasn't sure how to explain parts of my faith, I wasn't wavering. The hardest part about going to school every day is knowing that there are people who suffer and struggle, and they don't have God. And they think they know the world, they think they can survive, but the world is harsh, the world is fickle, and the world is unpredictable. You can't depend on anyone, not even yourself. It's only God who can pull me through everyday life. When I swim and I feel like I'm going to die before I finish the set, I always end up thinking of God. And when I walk to school at 7 in the morning, and I feel really terrible and tired, I look at the sunrise, and I'm reminded that only God can create this beautiful world. When things go rough, when I have a bad day, I turn to God, because God is the only thing that will continue to be there day after day, year after year, and for eternity. God will always love me, no matter how imperfect or broken I am. Being a Christian is a hard and lifelong journey, and I will always learn more about God and His love, and I will continue to make and break commitments to God. A quote from one of my first youth retreats states, "The goal of commitment is not perfection, but progression." I can't expect to be a perfect Christian, because God does not want perfection, He wants obedience. I want to use my life as a living testimony towards God, and show others that my life is different because I'm a Christian. I have no clue of what will happen in the future, or even tomorrow. Situations will change, the people around me will change, but the most important part is that God will never change, and He will always love me. When I worry about tomorrow, I always think of the verse I first learned in Awana. Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." No matter where I am or who I become in my life, I will always have God to love me, to provide for me, and to lead me. Thank you.